Well, good morning. We are going to hold the library board meeting Tuesday, June 9th, our regular meeting. And we'll start with a call to order, please.
Okay. Ms. Clemens?
Here.
Ms. Conan?
Here.
Mr. Hendon?
Here.
Mrs. Lamacchia?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Ms. Redden?
Here.
Okay.
All right. Why don't we start with our action items? The first item is the Eva Jane Romaine Coombe Director's Report. Paula, if you'd like to deliver that.
Sure. Let me get to the right report there. Thank you, Ms. Conan. Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to start with a recommendation for fine-free future. So as I mentioned, and I should say I'm Paula Bremheger. I am the Eva Jane Romaine Coombe Director. This is my report. Thank you. As mentioned in our May report, for several years, many public libraries, including several in Ohio and Northern Kentucky, have been eliminating fines for overdue materials. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the question has become more urgent of how our library should approach the future of fines. A small work group of staff was charged with contacting public libraries to give an overview of the status of fines and fees. So currently we do have, just for a little context, and it's on our webpage, we do have a schedule of fines, and we have had that same schedule for several years. We haven't adjusted it too recently. When we reached out to find out what others were doing, we found we've surveyed 49 public libraries. So we had 11 local libraries, 7 Ohio libraries serving large metropolitan areas, 31 peer libraries across the nation. So those are libraries that serve similar size populations or have a similar setup to ours. The staff who did that research found that 12 libraries at that time were fine-free before the pandemic. Several additional libraries were fine-free, but only for kids, for juveniles. Following the pandemic, in mid-April, 3 Ohio Metro libraries and 9 peer libraries joined that list for a total of 24 libraries. The remaining libraries have waived overdue fines or extended due dates, as we have, during the pandemic, with 15 stating a date to resume charging overdue fines, ranging anywhere from the end of May to the end of December of this year. 7 libraries granted amnesty for past overdue fines, including 5 local Kentucky libraries that granted amnesty for all the cost of all items lost before the pandemic closure. There was a big article in the Enquirer on that that said Northern Kentucky's declare amnesty for all. It was a couple of weeks ago. It is our recommendation that our library join many others in the state and regionally in operating in this fine-free environment. So I do have some recommendations here that include a few specifics, and I bring those specifics up just they're a little more weedy than we might normally be looking at this level, but I think it's important since it's a bit of a sea change for us. So waiving fines until the end of the year and possibly beyond after assessment. So the recommendation is that we look at very least through 2020, but it would be worthwhile then to assess and continue in that avenue if possible, pending anything that we see that is a big issue that we need to revisit that. Also, a complete amnesty following the lead of other regional libraries, which encompasses past material costs and fines, with the library resuming the practice of charging for lost items when we are back to full service. Providing staff with guidance and limits to forgive fines or fees on a case-by-case basis moving forward. Raising or removing the dollar barrier limit for borrowed materials, and raising the threshold for an account to be sent to a collection agency. A couple of important points to emphasize. The change will not eliminate all financial consequences for failure to return materials. Also, fines comprise a small portion of overall revenue, with this portion on a steady downward trend for several years. You can see that in that chart that is attached to the bottom of the report in Appendix 1. Although there is a loss of revenue, there are certain transactional expenses associated with the collection of that revenue that will result in a small offset. We will continue billing for lost and damaged items, and overdue fines, of course, prevent some people from checking out material, which undermines the library's overall mission of connecting people to the world of ideas and information, which is our mission. I also just want to quickly note on that last point, as we've seen the move from print material to digital material and ebooks, particularly accelerated during the pandemic. Of course, e-material has no fines associated with it. The material just disappears. I'm sure many trustees use e-material. It just disappears from your e-reader, so there's no accumulation of fines. However, those that aren't fortunate enough to have an e-reader, can't use one, they still take print material, and then they are the folks that are incurring fines. So that's also worth noting. So that's a lot of information. There are some specifics. Not everything has been figured out, but I did want to put that in here because we would like to move forward again, at very least through 2020. And it would be the hope that we would continue in this avenue after an assessment at the end of 2020 to be sure that we're comfortable with this fine-free environment. Are there questions from the trustees that we can help answer here?
Paula, it's Monica. I do have a question.
Yes.
Has there been any measurement whether this increases the rate of the returns when there's no fine associated with it?
It's a good question. And Brett, who I believe is on the call, Brett Bonfield, who is our Chief Operating Officer, has done some review of that. And it's a little early because many libraries we don't have years of data around it. But I think Brett might have some insight that he shared with me. Brett, do you have some information on that?
I do. Thank you, Paula. Yeah, I mean, I think the number of libraries that have actually gone forth and made formal studies of this is somewhat limited, but those that have found that their customers are more likely to return materials if there's no significant fee associated with it. It's sort of the metaphor of kind of walking away from a mortgage, right? If people get so far underwater on a mortgage, they walk away from it. And it's the same dynamic. If you owe, $100 on, 5 DVDs, you just kind of walk away and say, I'm never going to use the library anymore. But if you can simply return the DVDs, you're back in good graces with the library, even if it's, a couple of months later, then they'll actually return the DVDs and the libraries save on the cost of having to replace those DVDs. So I think that dynamic is what we've found both in Ohio and in some other libraries around the country.
Great. Thanks, Brett.
Other questions from the trustees?
More like a statement. This is Diane Redden. I like the idea of we're going to try it out to the end of this year. It gives us then some actual data for us that we can then compare to others. I think it's a good first step. And the fact that I know it was pointed out in an earlier report that we do have some local funding now, where before we did not. It was all state provided. So I think it's an appropriate first step.
Ditto.
Thank you.
This is Greg Olson. Do we know what the net effect will be in terms of lost net income?
If you look at the chart and Molly put that together, last year, the overall revenue generated from fines was about $562,000, which had dropped.
Right.
So we wouldn't lose all of that to some degree.
That's what I was curious. I looked at the chart last night. I was just curious as to what the net effect was.
It's difficult to know, and because we're in the pandemic situation, some of that will be a little screwy because we're not charging fines when people couldn't return material. So we would naturally see a drop anyway, but we'll look at that more closely. Again, we do have built in, it's not like people can just take our stuff and we wouldn't hold them financially accountable in any way. So that's another point to Ms. Redden's point too, that we should look at the end of the year, and then we may have a better idea. But I would caution that this is going to be an odd year anyway.
Yeah.
Because of the loss of revenue, regardless of a change for several months. But people worry a lot about returning material. I can tell you, based on our experience during the pandemic, the calls we got and the number of people that just did not want to get in trouble for not returning their stuff was rather surprising and epic. No matter how much we told them, we have really trained them to want to support the library by returning our items.
And it doesn't matter sometimes whether they're low economic level or whether they're wealthy people. People worry about 10-cent fines.
They do.
This is Diane.
Nobody wants their name published in the newspaper for being delinquent.
On their permanent record.
Yes.
Yeah.
At what point do we,
Greg, I think you're fading out a little bit on your sound, just a little.
okay, is there a point where we charge them for never returning?
Yes, and that is one thing. Again, there's a little bit more detail in here, and we hadn't necessarily planned to bring this to the board quite so early with a full recommendation, but conditions just kind of forced us to do that. We didn't want to wait till August. That seemed the right time. So there is, and that is something that we would need to set more specifically about what that looks like. The team that worked on this did this very quickly for us and sort of set some of the higher level goals. But again, some of that list of items that are what we're recommending, all of them may not be what we go with, but we wanted to put out there so you had a context for what it is. And I think when we come back in August, obviously we'll have the full situation and we may even have some initial data on it as well. Okay. Any other questions on that? If not, I'll move on with my report. And at the end, we did put this in action because we did want to have, I did want to have a vote on that, obviously. Okay, moving on. Message of inclusion. Following the recent protests over the tragic death of George Floyd, I opened a dialogue with our staff and with the public. I reiterated our commitment to valuing the lives and dignity of the many people of color we serve. Internally, we will be holding moderated discussions to hear the voice of staff who can help our organization be truly diverse and inclusive. We will also develop concrete steps to ensure inclusion is built into our organization and leadership structure. Externally, as you all know, our facilities master plan process has a strong emphasis on diversity and inclusion. Thank you to the trustees when we did our guiding principles. Diversity and inclusion was one that you collectively agreed would be on our list of guiding principles. So we talked about that a lot with our public, and we will build on this work. Despite the pandemic and limits to in-person gatherings, we are developing spaces for discussion and resources to support healing and growth. Nadine, I don't think Judge Allen is on the call yet, but she did ask that I note last year in April of 2019, we did sign on to the Urban Library Council Statement on Race and Social Equity. That was in April, and about 160, 170 public libraries across North America have signed on to that. And that is a statement that really reiterates our commitment to achieving racial and social equity by contributing to a more just society in which all community members can realize their full potential. Our libraries can help achieve true and sustained equity through an intentional, systemic, and transformative library community partnership. So I think Judge Allen was interested in just having that stated. The statement's a little bit longer, and we do have that available in the message on my blog. It is linked to the full statement, but she did ask that we note that and reiterate that we have signed on to that, as have nearly 170 other public libraries across North America. So any questions on that? Moving on then, Price Hill operations moving out of the Cincinnati Recreation Center. The temporary operation of the Price Hill branch, which had been located in the neighboring CRC Commission site since a ceiling collapse in July of 2018, have ceased. The continuation of the lease agreement with the CRC expired in May of 2020. The CRC also had their own needs for that space this summer, and we have a projected opening for the renovated and expanded Price Hill branch set for 2020. Late 2020 or early 2021. Staff will continue to find avenues for offering materials and services via community partnerships in Price Hill until the greatly enhanced new location opens. And I will be asking for us to really give great thanks to the CRC more formally for their amazing assistance. It's been 2 years, and that's really been amazing.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate to
Yeah.
really thank them.
Yeah, we probably will bring a resolution in August, and I may ask, the CRC board, I think is not currently, has been dissolved, and I think the CRC director is reporting directly to the mayor, so I may indeed ask for us to send a collective thank you to the mayor and city council, since that's been such an essential piece of what we've been able to offer in that community the last 2 years. Without them, our presence would have been greatly diminished.
I think that's a great idea, Paula. That's
Yeah.
great.
I'll make a note. Okay, finally, statistics. We had mentioned in May that we're moving to produce a new statistical report in the format on a quarterly basis. So the next quarterly report will be produced at the end of July and reviewed at the August board meeting. We're trying to get a more trend-based report that captures trends and also gives our new data analysts the opportunity to show that perhaps visually. But in lieu of that report, there are some statistical overview. There's a bit of statistical overview information here for May that you can read through. We had 432 curbside, 931 drive-through visits, 2,500 meals served. Digital circulation was up 30% from May of 2019. We have some social media. We had a lot of engagement. We had a lot of calls and emails and chats through our virtual information center, new card holders, and of course, an awful lot of minutes of Wi-Fi used at our locations for people most likely outside our locations. So just a note there to give you a little bit of a context of what's been happening in May.
What do they do? Just sit on the library steps and
Or
use
in
the
the
Wi-Fi?
Yes, or in the parking lot. The branch manager at Sharonville has a funny story where she and her staff believed that there were regular users of Sharonville who would park in the parking lot and use the Wi-Fi and then kind of wave to each other from their cars.
Great.
So we have some dedicated users. That is the end of my report. And Molly, I assume we do need a vote on that with the fine recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes, I need a motion and a second.
I'll move to, Betsy will move to accept the report.
Bob
I
will second the report.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paula. Let's move now to the Facilities and Finance and Audit Committee report. Bob, would you give us that report, please?
Yes, I will. The Facilities and Finance and Audit Committee met virtually on June the 1st, 2020. Committee Chair Robert Henning, committee members Nadine Allen, Diane Cunningham Redden, along with Board President Monica Dothan-Conan were in attendance. Staff members Paula Bring-Heger and Molly DeFossi were also in attendance. It's a recommendation of the committee that the board take the following action. For the Deer Park branch lease, approval of the Deer Park lease with the following key terms authorize the Eva Jane Remain Coombe Director to exercise the lease. Landlord is Hamilton Group LLC. Description of the property is 29,934 square feet in the Dillonvale Shopping Center. The initial lease term is 10 years, 4 months at no cost, from 4 to 6 months, from 5 to 64 months, $17,661 per month, from 65 to 120 months, $17,750 per month. Build-out contribution from the landlord is roof replacement. The estimated project cost of the library is $5 million.
Over 10 years now.
The Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office has reviewed the lease. Madisonville branch accessibility, approval of Madisonville lease with the following key elements. Key terms, authorize the Eva Jane Remain Director to execute the lease subject to review from the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. Landlord is Madisonville Phase 3 LLC. Description of the property is 8,762 estimated square feet in new mixed-use property block between Prentice and Wetzel Avenue, Madison Avenue, and Matthias Avenue Street. Estimated completion of property is spring 2022. Occupancy 180 days after completion. The initial lease term is 15 years, 1 to 60 months, $15 per square foot, estimated at $10,952 per month. from 61 to 120 months, $16 per square foot, estimated $11,682 per month. From 121 to 180 months, $17 per square foot, estimated at $12,412 per month. CMA estimated at $4,600 per month. Renewal options, 2 5-year options at market value rental. Build out contribution from landlord, $40 per square foot, currently estimated at $350,000, 480. Option to purchase a fair market value between 7.5 and 9.5 year of lease. Estimated project, the cost of the library is to be determined.
Can I ask a question, Betsy?
Sure.
Paula, how much larger is this than the current library building they have in Madisonville?
Well, the Madisonville Library is one of those that I'm just looking here to see if I can get the full square footage is not really a good indication of the useful square footage. So the full Madisonville branch is just about 10,000 square feet, but we do not use anywhere near that because it's a 2-story building and we only use the first floor. So it's not even quite half of that, I would say.
Okay.
The new space is, while it's not yet determined, it is comparable maybe to St. Bernard, and it could possibly be a little bit bigger. So, Molly, do you remember that Madisonville, the current, what we determined to be the useful square foot right now at Madisonville?
Well, like you said, on the first floor, I would say it is under that 5,000 square feet.
too.
The basement
Okay.
is not accessible. And, that building has those little alcove areas and then that super large desk. So
Right.
it's not super functional.
Right.
Well-
I mean, it's under 5,000 for
Oh, well, I
sure.
knew it would be probably a better situation. I was just
Yeah.
wondering
It's a great
how
question.
much better. Okay.
Yeah.
This is Greg. This is my space. This is the kind of stuff I do. I'm happy to give my opinion on this. It would be I would enjoy taking a look at the entire lease, and in the future, I asked Paula about this last night. If we have an agent representing us, and I believe we do from Cushman & Wakefield, they should provide us on the most important pieces of the deal terms.
Greg, I
for the
think you're breaking up
trustees
a
to,
little bit. Again,
opine on it. It would be. I'm sorry.
you're breaking up just a
I'll
little
try to
bit.
get closer to it. I'm going to get closer to my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, sure.
Is that better?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. My experience here is we use a lease abstract to show all the most important detail terms. And I'm happy to look at each one of these leases. I've been doing this for 18 years. So just to see how it compares to other leases that we have and what is consistent in the community at large, and just to make sure that we're getting the terms that are market rate. And so in this case, do we know how much the build out is going to be in terms of the library's expense for Madisonville?
Well, I think that it may depend. We're still talking to them about a couple of structural issues that include that. We do have a budget estimate of what we'd hoped the Madisonville project would be. And what we tend to do is set that budget and then build out to that budget. So I know that because this has been a little bit of back and forth, and that question Betsy asked about the space size
Right.
also dictates some of this. And their plans have changed a little bit in Madisonville. So there is a bit more flexibility in the amount of space we may or may not want to take, but it depends on the cost. So Greg, the thing that might be helpful, and we would love to talk about it because Molly and I have been looking at this, and it's changed a number of times and we've gone back to them. And of course, we always have to work through the prosecutor as well when we go forward with any lease. So it might be good for us to sit down and look at this to get your input as well
Yeah, I'm happy
as
to
we
do
move
that.
forward. Yeah, that
Yeah,
might
I look
be.
at these all the time. We do
Yeah.
leases. We have 88 commercial tenants. So I do this all the time. And I just want to make sure that we're getting what something is fair to us.
Oh,
And,
so do we. Yes, absolutely. So that we're happy to do that. And we can set that up for a discussion with you to review that as well.
Yeah, I will say that a 15-year lease is awesome for that landlord. They can get tremendous financing with that type of security, especially given that it's coming from the county or coming from the library. So very secure lender, very secure tenant. And so there's just some things that are just off the cuff that I would like to chat offline with you about if you'd like. So happy to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Greg,
you're welcome.
thank you for offering your services. That's much appreciated.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I'm not, I'm going to be on this
I was
board. I'm
hoping
gonna
you
help.
would move in there on some of these leases. Very good.
Yeah, don't hesitate to ask me.
Great.
And this is Betsy. I had pointed out to them too, Greg, that we're a draw for their businesses.
Oh,
there in all their
absolutely.
buildings.
Absolutely.
So-
This is, I mean, these rents aren't egregious. I just want to make sure that, typically if you have a 15-year lease, you end up with 3 5-year options. And there's other things that we could work on, but I think you guys have done a really nice job. I just happy to add some insight if I can.
Expertise.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good.
sure. Yeah.
Nadine here, and I'm listening now, and I appreciate Greg's expertise also. You're a great addition to this board.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to helping.
All right, let's move on. The lease build-out projects for 2020 through 2024. Statement of qualifications, architect selection. Authorize the Eva Jane Romaine Corrector to enter into a contract with GBBN as the firm most qualified for the project. Library receives statement of qualifications from 15 firms interested in providing architectural and design services for lease build-out projects from 2020 to 2024, interested in providing architectural and design services, and ranked the top 3 firms as follows. Number 1 is GBBN. Number 2 is Brand Stetler Carroll Incorporated. Number 3 is Levine Porter Architects. The committee reviewed the submittals and considered several factors. Working with the library industry, working with publicly bid projects, knowledge and relationships with local construction market, and portfolio sample projects. We appreciate all of those who submitted proposals for this work, and we thank you. The main library project statement of qualifications, architect selection. Authorize Eva Jane Romaine Corrector to enter into contract with Chapman Architects for the firm most qualified for the project. The library received statements from qualification of 6 firms interested in providing architectural and design services for the main library project and ranked the top 3 firms as follows. Number 1, Chaplin Architects. Number 2, GBBN. Number 3, Williams Architects. The committee reviewed the submittals with consideration of several factors. Working with the library, working in the library industry with an emphasis on large urban libraries, working with publicly bid projects with multiple phases over a period of time, knowledge and relationship with local construction market, portfolio sample projects. Library staff will determine the timing of the project given the funding challenges. In addition, the library will begin discussions with potential owners, rep firms for this project. 2019 audit update. Waive the post-audit meeting given that the audit is complete, almost complete, and library staff is working to complete the comprehensive annual financial report. Currently, the auditors expect to issue a clean opinion and clean GAGAS opinion, and there are no management letter. The auditors will still send out a draft opinion, GAGAS opinion, to each board member and the option to request a meeting within 5 days of receiving the email. Now, for information only, budget update. Molly, you want to take that? Well, I'll do it.
Sure.
My budget update. Currently, we do not have any new updates related to PLF funding, but do expect more information to report to the board meeting. We expect the tax levy amount for the second half of be available at the August board meeting. The primary source of other revenue is fines and fees. Expect that this is down for the year, and we expect That to continue through 2020. Procedural changes. As staff begins returning to the building and the library begins providing services, we're making concentrated effort to make sure that we have necessary cleaning, sanitizing, and protective equipment. One major challenge is the number of facilities we have. In many cases, we need to keep a large amount on hand so we can meet the needs of our locations. In addition, we do not have enough good information on consumption to predict our needs. These factors, combined with customer and staff expectations, as well as limited supplies in the market, need to be considered when rolling out additional services. That concludes my report. We do need recommendation for the leases. I'd recommend that we approve those leases.
This is Diane, I second.
All in favor?
Well,
I'm not prepared to approve the leases. I apologize. I mean, I think at your Delhi, what was the first one?
Deer
The
Park.
Deer Park, yeah.
Deer Park, I don't have any issues with, but I would like to look at the current lease proposal for Madisonville.
We can construct two motions if you'd like, and we can always, Greg, we can always do the Madisonville approve moving forward after more intense, after additional review, if you'd like. So we could do the Deer Park motion separately, and then we could do a Madisonville lease motion with that noted in there, if you're comfortable with that.
I am, yeah. And this is not this is not to say that it's not a good lease. I just want to have a few minutes to look at it.
Absolutely.
And our agent should be, our commercial real estate agent should be preparing lease abstracts so we can all look at it and have a really good idea of what the major terms are. And that would be really helpful for this. So that Bob and his committee can present that to everybody. And it's just a really healthy way to understand the terms that you're working with.
And Molly, you've been working with Tori, and we've had several iterations of this potential lease over the last couple of months. And she has some of that information, so we could package that up in a more formal way.
Yes, and
Yeah.
she's also come to a couple committee meetings and presented information. So we do have additional information. But what I'd like to do is have the action be approve the whole report, because the report also includes the architect selection. So approve the report with the exception of the Madisonville lease. If that could be the motion, Mr. Hendon.
All right, that will be the motion.
Okay. And
This is
Ms.
Diane, I
Redden, have you
second
for a
that motion.
second? And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Molly,
you. Yeah.
Molly, it's Monica.
Yeah,
I need to abstain on the Madisonville brand. And
right.
I also need to abstain on main library project statement of qualifications for the architect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Molly.
You're
And Mr. Olson, we'll get back with you on that and kind of review that and get Tori involved in the discussion as well, so we can
Okay.
review what's going on. Appreciate that extra eyes on that.
Yeah, you're welcome. If I wouldn't say anything, it was a 15-year lease, but that's a long time into the future.
Okay.
Okay, and we do have that fiscal officer's report that is kind of atypical, but we happens every 5 years.
Yeah.
Sure. Molly, would you like to go ahead and deliver that?
Yeah. So our current depository agreements with Fifth Third Bank, US Bank, PNC Bank, and Huntington Bank expire on July 31st, 2020. We are requesting authority to seek and execute depository agreements for the period August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2025 with the following banks, which are the 5 largest in Cincinnati: Fifth Third, First Financial, Huntington, PNC, and US Bank. And although the library is currently satisfied with the commercial banking provided by Fifth Third Bank and the investment management services provided by US Bank, we intend to evaluate these services in the next 12 to 18 months, and we will update the board as appropriate. But I need a motion and a vote on this.
Right. So move to accept.
Thank you.
That's it.
Diane, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Molly.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Let's move into the information items. Karen, we'd like to put the technology committee report first, if you're ready to give that.
Monica, she may have hopped off. She was having another meeting at
Okay.
work, and she was hoping to so I think her timing is a little odd. We may want to ask another committee member to deliver this brief report as well.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to do it.
Diane,
It's okay?
Diane, go for it.
Okay, Technology Committee. Chair is Karen Clemens. Members Greg Olson, Diane Cunningham Redden. BiblioCommons update. BiblioCore is the part of BiblioCommons that will replace our current catalog search functionality with more accurate search results, easier borrowing, and enhanced discovery pathways to our materials. BiblioWeb is the part of BiblioCommons that will replace CincinnatiLibrary.org with a new website, fresh content, great customer experience, and seamless integration with the catalog. After delaying staff training and the launch date, we have a new timeline. June 8 to July 12, BiblioCore training for staff featuring webinars and online classes, newly developed staff training and mostly asynchronous, easy on scheduling as we open services. June 29th to July 12, BiblioWeb tours for staff. July 13th to August 2nd, public preview of the complete BiblioCommons experience. Monday, August 3rd, full public launch of BiblioCommons. We are happy to provide a top-flight online experience for all of our customers, especially during times of more limited or modified access to our physical locations. Good report.
I have a question. It says that BiblioCore will replace our present website, but to get to BiblioCore, can you go through this publiclibrary.org?
I think it'll direct to the new site.
All right, that's fine. Because people aren't going to want to know what BiblioCore is.
No, it's the link behind the scenes for functionality. So forward facing people are going to do the same thing. This is the guts. If that makes sense.
It's a great answer.
Any other questions that I'll make up on the fly for answers?
I saw Holbrook, our technology and logistics officer, smiling, so you got it right.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Right.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank
So
you.
you're on a roll. Why don't we continue now with the operations committee? Would you like for that report?
I'm now
Thank you.
warmed up. So
Good.
Operations Committee, Diane Cunningham Redden is chair, members Karen Clemens and Robert Hendon. Featured manager is Kaya Bergen, manager of Avondale Branch Library. Kaya Bergen is the mid-sized branch manager at Avondale Branch Library. She has volunteered and worked at libraries since she was a teenager. Kaya received her Bachelor of Arts in History and Bachelor of Science in Education from Miami University and her MLIS from the University of Pittsburgh. In 2015, Kaya was named an ALA, American Library Association, Emerging Leader. Prior to moving back to Cincinnati in 2018, Kaya served as the Adult Services Librarian at the Westerville Public Library in Westerville, Ohio. Kaya is from the Avondale neighborhood where her family has lived for over 60 years. Kaya is passionate about the roles libraries play in enriching their communities. Today, Kaya will talk about the Avondale community, the role the branch plays in that community in particular, the importance the library plays in providing essential technology access. Kaya?
Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning to you all. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to speak briefly about how the Avondale Library fits into the fabric of the Avondale community. It's a place in the neighborhood where people come together and how we meet individual community members' needs for access to technology. Come to third place for many people, not just here in Ohio, but across the country. The third place, first defined by Ray Oldenburg in the 1980s, is a concept that reflects a person's needs for three different and important places. The first being home, the second work, and a third undefined place. The third place provides an escape where a person feels welcome, relaxed, and can establish a sense. The Avondale Branch Library is that third place for many of our customers. The library is where they can connect with others and have an exchange of ideas. Also, customers have the feeling of being a part together. Everyone is there as an individual, yet is taking part in a communal environment. One of the greatest roles of libraries, as the third place, is bridging the gap of technology. As technology accelerates, the digital divide is widening. PLCH continues to make strides to close the gap by establishing makerspaces and several library locations. And most recently, at the Avondale Branch Library, they installed laptop kiosks. This laptop kiosk, in addition to the 19 desktops, increased customer access to internet-capable devices. The Avondale Branch Library consistently ranks in the top 5 branches for computer usage. This indicates that the Avondale community depends on, needs, and deserves technology access. As the library continues phased reopening during these pandemic times, Tier 3 of our recovery and resiliency plan is an opportunity for the Avondale branch to provide in-person, even though limited, tech access that is much needed in our community. We are currently working on plans to reopen the Avondale branch to allow customers to visit the library for a specified length of time. Customers will have access to computers and will be able to print, scan, copy, and fax, because we know our customers have a real need for these functions. Details are still being worked out, which will help us to find the balance between safety and technology access. We are excited to get back to meeting our customers' needs and to being that important third place in our community once more. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation.
Great.
Thank you, Kaya.
Thank you.
Okay, continuing in the report, in-person service activation and plans. On Tuesday, May 26th, the library reopened drive-through service at its Covedale, Groesbeck, Harrison, and Reading branches, as well as the main library, and curbside service at Sims. 2 days later, on May 28th, the library began curbside service at Blue Ash and Loveland branches and added additional curbside service locations on June 1st at Anderson, Clifton, Green Township, North Central, and Walnut Hills branches. Curbside service at Delhi, Hyde Park, Oakley, Sharonville, and Wyoming branches was added on June 8th. In addition, on June 1, we began accepting returns at all locations except Price Hill, which is noted in the director's report is no longer operating in the CRC Center where it has been co-located because the center is not open to the public. June 1 was also significant because the library began accepting new requests to reserve books, DVDs, and other physical items in its collection. Customers could send their holds to any of the locations providing in-person service. Based on the success of the first 18 locations offering in-person service, and by comparing best practices with peer libraries, the library is planning to add additional in-person service later in June. Our intention is to open the main library's first floor in both buildings for technology access, including copying, printing, and faxing the week of June 15th. We will add 3 additional locations, Avondale, College Hill, and St. Bernard, for similar technology-focused access the week of June 22nd. Staff will mediate access to on-site materials as we can at these early locations offering in-person service. These service models will be different than pre-pandemic service with limited number of customers in any location at a given time and a focus on recommended social distancing. Also on June 22, we intend to launch browsing-only locations at Marymount and Montford Heights. As services restart, we may need to review our standards of library behavior to ensure that these standards encompass regulations of social distances as necessitated by public health needs. Any change is subject to approval by the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office and approved by the Board of Trustees at the next full board meeting. Branch refreshes College Hill.
Excuse me,
Yes.
the Nadine here. I have a question about this report. And so at this point, as far as in-service use of technology, this is not available for people to use the any of the computers. That's correct. They cannot have access
Right.
to the computer.
That's right, Nadine. Right now, they cannot, but on the
Yeah.
15th and the 22nd, we begin to phase those in. And then, the situation is changing quite rapidly. So we do intend to have a more full list of what we'll be doing and continuing in those Monday rollouts with focused service. So the 29th and the 6th and the 13th of July, moving through the middle of July to provide services that are focused, that permit, people to have access to these things, and technologies at the top of the list.
Right. And the reason that I did ask is because I've been in communication with Paula because of the fact that the Community Action Agency is closed also. And because of the huge and high volume of evictions, the library served such a role in the community for them to access computers for the purpose of making appointments with legal aid and with the Community Action Agency. And so don't take this as a criticism. We've played a wonderful role, and we're moving as rapidly as possible. So I wanted to be able to tell CAA and just communicate with them when the library could continue to provide or start to provide those services again to assist the community in this sort of pandemic effect.
Absolutely. And I have to give great credit to the staff at the main library and our popular library, circulation services in the South Building, as well as the folks in the tech center who are really moving their services to the first floor for some controlled access. And they're planning to the best of their ability to open that space up, because we do understand the need to do that, as Kaya noted, in the safest way we can, with thoughtful and intentional planning and capacity limits and time limits. But I do know that those folks we've been talking to understand that gap is serious, and the evictions is a great example of how people do rely on technology but can't always get to it. And we've heard that from some of our other partners in the areas of employment and unemployment and government assistance and needs and benefits. So that's a big reason that we're pushing with that kind of focus as much as we can. Absolutely.
Nadine, this is Diane. Does the CAA have a reopening date announced?
Well, I haven't heard one. I'm going to be in communication with them after this meeting. And because I told them I was going to just find out what the library has to make available. And one of the things is that people have to even make an appointment by computer to meet with CAA. So, but the thing is, they provide eviction services. They even have an emergency fund. So I'm saying connecting this would be a great benefit to the whole community. So I appreciate what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have worked with them. Judge Allen, you and I talked a little bit by email just yesterday. We have been working with them on trying to get resources for those in this situation and around the legal aid work they're doing in this area. So we do have a connection with them, and I'm happy to talk to anyone over there from the CAA. I've had some discussions with Mark Lawson, who is their president and CEO, and I know Mark is interested in trying to move this along in a way that makes sense too. So appreciate that connection very much.
Thank you.
Okay, in the final part of this report, the branch refreshes for College Hill and Madeira. The library is finishing its second of 3 scheduled branch refreshes and starting its third. Following the carpet paint and furniture refresh at Elmwood Place, which reopened March 9, a refreshed College Hill with new carpet and paint will reopen for technology-focused access during the week of June 21st. Madeira's carpet and paint refresh, which will reverse the adult and children's area of the building in order to offer improved customer service and better meet the needs of its community, will be completed in early July.
And what has been the reaction from these branches in the fact that they, just the impact of having the fresh paint and carpeting and furnishings? Is it I expect that it's having a really, really positive impact.
So the
Well,
only
Elmwood,
thing I know personally is on the Madeira Moms website or Facebook page, there was consternation about the library looking in the windows and things are moving, what's going on? And they've been the branch manager responded, and then I just said, well, from what I understand, public knowledge, I didn't say that I was on a board of trustees, just being refreshed and, cleaned up a bit. And it was delayed because we were doing it all in-house. And because of the pandemic. And then one person wanted to know, was the landscaping going to be refreshed? And I just didn't even answer that because I don't know. So there's concern about the ivy that's growing up the building. If you want to make a red line note about that, there was concern about that. Because, what else do we have to do?
Yeah. And I do know there's a lot of interest, and this is we did the refresh at Elmwood before the closures in mid-March,
Right.
and the folks at Elmwood loved it. I went out there and talked to the branch
Okay.
manager, and they really liked it. And then we were working on College Hill and had to stop
Right.
in the middle of that work and have restarted that. So when College Hill gets back to offering those kinds of mediated and moderated services on, I believe they're scheduled to go with some in-person service on the 22nd of June. That branch will be refreshed. And then Madeira, again, because this is a switch of trying to make the floor plan there work to the best of our ability to serve the community, will look a little bit different. So Diane, you'll have, or the layout will be different. Diane, you'll have to watch the social media and see what people are saying. So I'm excited about it. And I know that the branch manager and the staff there have been working really hard to come up with the best option for making that branch work for the families that are out there. So
Right.
we'll see what happens in July. I'm excited.
This is Betsy. I just wondered why they're doing the switch. I mean, that's my local library. So I was just curious as to why.
Brett, I know that
reasoning behind it.
Yeah, Brett has been working closely with the branch manager there and the staff. And so again, I'll ask Brett to kind of give a little bit of background on his report here in that area.
Yeah, thank you for asking. The side that currently houses the adult section, which will house the children's section when we reopen, is 20% larger. And what we've been seeing is a dramatic increase in circulation for youth material, and not just in Madeira, but just across the board. Adults are starting to use ebooks more and more. And so we're starting to see print circulation decrease somewhat in adults. And so we want to make sure we have plenty of space for youth services in Madeira, because Madeira just does, I mean, you can't park on the mornings that there are story times, right? So we need to have plenty of space for that in Madeira. So that's the idea.
Okay, just logical. I just wondered why. Okay.
Right.
I do have to, if we have a quick time for a very short story, we had Representative Miranda out there to visit one of the story times and look over the branch a little bit, as our legislators often do. And she came on a morning for story time, as Brett noted, and the place was packed. She couldn't find a parking spot. So we actually had to move a library vehicle to get her a spot because it's true that people park on the street. It's just a really very heavy used by families and those with young kids in particular.
Yeah.
Good.
Sounds like you need the parking lot to be increased by 20%.
Yes.
Yeah, it's landlocked.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you for that report. Let's go on now to the Human Resources Committee. Nadine, would you like to deliver that report, please?
Yes, this is from Nadine Allen and my co-chair members, our Karen Clemens and Betsy Lamacchia. Benefits renewal for 2021. Preparation for the 2021 renewal of medical and voluntary benefits has begun. The Human Resources Benefits team met with Strategic Benefits, the library's benefits broker, to discuss the claims data and projections for the 2021 renewal rates. Strategic Benefits informed the team that the anticipated renewal rates, which are based on experience and historical claims data, are projected to increase at a more significant rate than in recent years. Human Resources will seek to engage a small group of staff to discuss benefit options as we move forward. That concludes my report. I do have a question. Is there a reason why there has been an increase in the rate of claims in recent years?
Kyla, do you want to go ahead and address that?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is Kyla Harden, Human Resources Director. Ms. Allen, it's one of those years where it's an intersection of just a lot of high claims. You know, the nature of the claims have been higher this year or this past year, which has just significantly impacted our experience rating.
All right, that's fine. I accept that.
For specific reasons.
I knew that. I knew there was some kind of a reason for that.
Right, right. It's just one of those years. They call it the kind of the 1 in 20 years that we
Well,
experience.
good.
So
Won't happen. It won't happen again, probably.
that is my hope. That is my hope.
Great. Well, thank you, Nadine. Let's go now to the strategy committee report. Betsy, would you like to deliver that report, please?
Okay, for the strategy committee, the summer learning, we've adjusted the plans for the summer learning because we need to offer the resources and opportunities in a way that provides the flexibility given this uncertain environment. And we're offering a mix of online and print resources and services to accommodate the families who have different levels of access and expertise with the digital tools and the technology that we have. Discover Summer officially kicks off yesterday. It kicked off yesterday. And if you want any information, that can be found at the cincinnatilibrary.org/summer. We're serving the community by distributing, as we said our last meeting, one free book or teen up to 30,000, as well as summer activity booklets for pre-kindergarten all the way up to high school. Families with pre-kindergartners will also receive an early literacy calendar, and each book includes a do-at-home STEM activity as well as a page to track the number of minutes each day a young person spends reading and learning. I'm sure the kids really enjoy that one. Planning virtual programs and events to take place during the summer. And if it becomes safe to do so later, we may consider some in-person small group activities, and they will be added to the online calendar as they are finalized. Creating a presence and engagement tool that will offer a website with resources. This year, we're piloting an engagement tool called Beanstack, which works via a mobile app and online. And the parents can use it to track their child's reading and learning and find and share their reading recommendations. And we hope to launch Beanstack in the second half of June. Summer meals are being offered at select branches based on the neighborhood demand and the capacity of our partner who delivers the meals. And this program is federally funded. In July, we'll begin offering take and make kits for elementary kids, which they can take home and enjoy with family members. The kits will help the children build skills in science, technology, engineering, math, and STEM. An ad hoc group of children's and teen services librarians are developing recommendations for serving the youth while we're in tiers 2 and 3 of our recovery process, which will lead to some additional services. The goal is to build on the existing partnerships we have, such as our summer meals partner, and to bring additional opportunities to the youth this summer, especially when our buildings are not open to the public. We are also in close communications with other community organizations that serve kids in the summer to see how we may coordinate our efforts to better serve them across the whole city and county. Community outreach. Since March, we've delivered over 700 masks sewn in our makerspace to Try Health and are awaiting cloth from the Hamilton County Public Health Department to begin making masks for them. Have we done so yet, Paula? Have we gotten cloth from the county public health department?
I don't know if we have yet, but did we?
We
just get it?
We do have the cloth, and staff at the Reading and St. Bernard branches will be making masks for the county.
That's great.
2,000 books are to the Cincinnati Recreation Commission so they can distribute them to the kids via their their rec to go bags. And we are expecting to deliver 500 more books provided by the Friends in early June to additional organizations in the county. We're also in conversations with the community institutions such as Cincinnati Compass, the Cincinnati Museum Center, and Cincinnati Public Schools to see how we may pool the resources to serve the vulnerable populations throughout the county. When some of our facilities are closed, we also have reached out to organizations and offer use of our space, such as parking lots, for activities like blood drives. Have they had any blood drives in our parking lots?
Not yet, but I know that Beth had talked with Hawksworth and they're offered that opportunity. So we're open to that. We're waiting to hear more from them. A few other libraries, I think most notably Cuyahoga County has done this and it seemed to work really well. So we'll keep looking at that as an option.
Okay. And given the unrest in the community due to the tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, we've also reached out to community groups to offer our support in helping to promote a dialogue about race and to create a more equitable community for all the residents, such as you have reported in your report, Paula.
Yeah,
And
I have a
that is-
question, Betsy. Thank you for that report. As for the one of those things that you're providing, is all of this available on the Cincinnati.org, CincinnatiLibrary.org summer or something? You mentioned a website. Is that all this information here is available there on how to get the books and you have something virtually daily and there's a lot in here.
Well, the summer was probably for the summer reading program, Discover Summer.
So it all be for that.
I don't know about the community outreach. Paul will have to.
Yes, so there are sort of two questions, and I think Betsy's got the kind of structure. So Beth, I see Beth is ready to talk. So Beth, the library's website provides information on how people can participate as individuals in our standard summer program, but Beth can give you a little bit more context. We've been reaching out and have a spreadsheet of community organizations that are doing like the rec to go bags where we might be able to provide a book. So Beth, if you have some more detail to share on that too. Beth.
The summer site is CincinnatiLibrary.org.
I think Beth is having a little freezing problem there. So we do, and I know that, for example, Judge Allen, CAA, when I talked with Mark Lawson, they do a distribution of food there in their parking lot, I think. So we have them on our list as somebody that we'd be happy to provide books that we could put in the bag. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're building out content on that summer site. We wanted to start with a streamlined information so it's focused and easy for people to understand. And then as summer progresses, we'll add more information and resources to keep things interesting and to help parents keep kids learning throughout the summer. So that's the summer site.
So it's CincinnatiLibrary.org/summer. I think that's in the report.
Yeah, it's
so
in the report there.
In the report is available there. Okay. Thank you.
And
I have grandkids.
And if you, in any of your work with community agencies, you receive any requests for more detail on how we might be able to support them, either signing kids up for the summer program or even just this idea of can we provide some of the books courtesy of the Friends since they're not having their book sale, please do contact us and we can get them on all of our lists.
Well, what about churches that have summer things going on for their congregations?
I would encourage, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, we mainly rely on the connections and partnerships and expertise of the branches. So they know their neighborhoods best, and we've delivered all of this summer material out to the branches. And for those that aren't fully open yet, we encourage them to connect with community partners as a way to distribute the materials.
Got it.
So places of worship are definitely in the mix there with the branches and their neighborhood partners.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Great.
Monica?
Yes.
It's Molly. Can I just ask a clarification question real quick?
Sure. Okay, back to the facility finance and audit report. I'm making my notes. So I just want to be clear on Madisonville. Are we tabling that vote, or are we going to have a 5-1-1 vote on Madisonville?
I
I
think
just want to make sure I'm clear.
I think Greg wanted the opportunity to review that lease.
Okay, so we're tabling that until a future meeting.
I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And Monica, I know that we had talked about just briefly, there's no development committee report, but just given a quick moment to Stacy to share some late breaking news, if you're still okay with that.
Absolutely. I love good news, Stacy. Go.
Well, I got some great news from the Anderson Township Library Association. And my last report at the last meeting, they had to cancel their June sale, and they are have now rescheduled that for August 8th. It's going to be at Burger Farms on which is an outdoor garden landscaping business on State Route 32. So that's now been scheduled. More details to come.
That's wonderful. It's good news. Definitely worth the time to report. There you go. So we have a number of consent agenda items that we approval of, starting with the minutes.
Betsy, move to accept.
Second,
Edmund, second.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to public comment, and I understand unless anything has changed, we do not have any public comment today.
Monica,
Yes.
can we just do an all in favor on the consent agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry, Molly, of course.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. I think unless anyone has any other business, we are ready to adjourn the meeting. If I could have a motion.
Diane,
Move that we adjourn the
Move,
meeting.
Betsy.
I second. Nadine.
Thank you, Nadine. All right. Thank you, everyone. And our next meeting will be held on August 11th at 4:30. Location to be confirmed.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good summer.
Thank you.